And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the 8 o'clock spot, live here on the Gryd Network, episode 16. I am your host / moderator, Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this Tuesday night. We got three great panelists, starting with our defending 8 o'clock spot champion from last week, the champion of macaroni and cheese and all things 8 o'clock spot, Mr. John Rivera, the host of the Pham Perspective podcast. John, what's going on, my man?
What's up? What's up? Coming to defend my championship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great to have you back on. Secondly, our returning guest, Dylan Lima, is joining the 8 o'clock spot. Dylan, are you ready to get your first title tonight?
I sure hope so. I definitely bungled last time going stuffing, but I'll be more ready this time.
Is not great. For context, y'all, last week, our last segment, our deciding segment, came down to John and Dylan for what was the best Thanksgiving side dish, and it was so obvious that John won that even Dylan agreed when it was all said and done. So shout out to y'all. And then finally, AJ, Alex Johnson from the Cowboys CanFan podcast here on the Gryd Network. AJ, y'all were in Texas at the Thanksgiving game, man. How'd that go?
Absolutely. Everything I remember, it was really, really awesome. So, but let me get one of these in quick if I can. Crack them if you got them, son.
The mantra of the CanFan. There we go. It's perfect. It's very, very fitting. So let's get into our first topic. But before we do, let's go over our rules. It's just as simple as this, folks. And again, this is all judged by yours truly. A great take gives you 200 points. A good take gives you 100 points. An okay take gives you 50. And a bad take, you come home empty-handed with 0 points. Let's look at the MVP race right now, which heavily involves the Dallas Cowboys starting quarterback, a man by the name of Dak Prescott, who is having undoubtedly the best season of his career. He's tops in the NFL in virtually every statistical category since week 5, that infamous Niners loss in touchdown passes, touchdown interception ratio, pass rating, QBR, the whole bit. Dak Prescott has been playing fantastic football, but you got other MVP competitors such as Patrick Mahomes, such as Jalen Hurts. Some have even argued for guys, non-quarterback players like Tyreek Hill. So I'll start with you, John. Today, if the regular season were to conclude, and we know this is a regular season award, would Dak Prescott be the MVP?
No at all. Just like you said, he's in the tops, and just like I said last week about Purdy, like he's in the mix if you want to consider in the mix. But as far as like front runner or a chance to win it, you got Hurts that 15 yards I think a game less in passing than Dak, but also Hurts is top 3 in rushing touchdowns. So if you want to talk about MVP candidate, you got Jalen Hurts. Purdy actually got a better QBR than Dak. So if you want to say that one, and we was arguing about Purdy last week. And then you also got, statistically, Lamar Jackson that's up there doing his thing. The Ravens are, hide and ride. I know we got a topic later about that. So, yeah, if you want to say he's in the mix, yeah, just to be America's team, they always look good. Dak is having a great season. I always give Dak his props. I'm never a Dak hater. When people say he's not a top 10 quarterback, I'll argue with him. But if he's in the race, yeah. But can he win it? No, I don't think so. I think, like I said, you got Hurts, you got Lamar Jackson, even Tyreek Hill, and like I say, even Tua numbers are like crazy as well. So if we would stop today, no, he's not the MVP. If it was today is what, the 28th of November? Nah. He won't win it. I think they'll probably give it a Hurts to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and the beauty of it, here's the thing with Lamar Jackson. The only thing I push back on with him is that Dak's numbers are universally better across the board. And one could argue in terms of weapons. And now Mark Andrews now gone for the Ravens. You could argue, though, as far as numbers are concerned, weapons are concerned, it's kind of dead even with what Lamar has compared to what Dak has. And then we talk about Jalen Hurts. Listen, Jalen beat Dak the first meeting, but Dak outplayed Jalen. Maybe this meeting in a couple of weeks will kind of be the tiebreaker and the deciding factor. But Jalen is a very worthy MVP candidate as well. John, I will give you a good take. That's a solid take. I'll give you 100 points there for your take here on the 8 o'clock spots to start off our defending champion right here. I'll move on to you now, Dylan. Do you think Dak Prescott, if the season ended today, is the MVP of the National Football League?
I do believe that Dak Prescott had a statement game this past weekend, but I don't think he is the MVP as of right now. As was mentioned before, Jalen Hurts, and it's so hard when the Cowboys aren't even the best team in their division to be considered the MVP for as of right now. And, while Dak doesn't have too much working for him, he is the big sole proprietor of that offense. I'm still banging on the table for Tua getting his MVP this year. And, the more that he keeps on dealing, and still the Dolphins are the number one scoring offense in the NFL right now. So that should definitely count for something. And while you can argue targets-wise, having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and such a spectacular running game, Tua is what drives that offense. And if teams weren't afraid of Tua, then the running game would not be what it'd be. So I still think Tua is the MVP.
That's fair. Although only thing I would push back on with Tua is the case for Tua is similar in a way as it is for Brock Purdy. It's hard to argue. You made a great point. I agree that it's hard to consider Dak for MVP when it's not even the best team in his own. The Cowboys aren't the best team in their own division, the NFC East. But what I would say is that when you're arguing for somebody on a guy's offense, whether or not he's the most valuable player in his own offense, Purdy, you could say that with Christian McCaffrey. Some have even said Trent Williams, which there's some merit there. And then the same case with Tyreek Hill. Like we should almost have like a rule, like if there's somebody on your same offense that is at least receiving some MVP notoriety and discussion, maybe we have to at least put some sort of asterisk next to it. But it's a fair point. You make fair points across the board. Good take there by Dylan to start the night on the 8 o'clock spot. And moving on to you, AJ, from the Cowboys CanFan podcast. I think I have some sense of what your answer is going to be, but nonetheless, I will still ask it. Is Dak Prescott the MVP of the National Football League?
I mean, I go by the rule that MVP is most valuable player, not necessarily the best player. Although, of course, you got to have the stats to compete, and so it's usually going to be someone who's in that top 3 of their position for quarterbacks. And if it's going to be a wide receiver, running back, they have to be basically blowing the roof off over everyone else. So yes, Dak Prescott for me, he definitely should be considered the top player for an MVP. Now, if we ended the season today, I would have less fuel for that fire. But if we look at the trajectory here, and this is including rushing and passing yards combined, Dak Prescott comes out ahead of Mahomes and Hurts in terms of total yards produced. But the bigger stat is their touchdown to interception ratio. Dak Prescott's on if we continued the trajectory from today to the rest of to the end of the season, Dak Prescott would be a 5.4 touchdown interception ratio. Mahomes and Hurts. Mahomes is 2.3 and Hurts is 1.8. He throws the ball away too much for me to consider that a most valuable player. And if we look at the pace of these interceptions as well, Hurts will finish with just about 16 interceptions. So you tell me, someone who's giving the ball away so much, is that valuable to their team, or is it just valuable to the offense because he's able to put up those numbers? I question because I don't know where to find these stats, but I question how many touchdowns and yards, and touchdowns specifically, is Hurts getting because of that tush push? And is that something that any other quarterback could come in and do, given how strong that offensive line and that formation is? So the final thing I would just say here is, of course, I'm a homer, so and I'm a Dak rider, but I just think that those stats alone, and considering like the team that Hurts is playing for and the tools that he has around him and that scheme, I just think that if you remove Dak from the Cowboys, another question is, would Dan Quinn stick around? Would he be willing to stay around with a team that's kind of subpar in offense? Because Dak provides a lot of opportunity by not throwing the ball away that the defense can come on well rested. So yes, Dak is, for me, he's the MVP. He's the MVP in my heart always, though. So.
Well, listen, at least you acknowledge that you are a homer and that you're obviously going to be loyal to your guy, Dak Prescott, and to the Cowboys in general, which we respect that obviously of any fan base. But yeah, that's an interesting point. I heard actually somebody else pose that, like, when you compare the rushing touchdowns, Dak to Hurts, obviously Hurts is going to blow Dak out of the water. I guess the only sort of pushback I would have in terms of the brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that Hurts, in some way, I know we get tired of hearing about how he squats 600 pounds, but that does matter. He can do things that maybe you can't run the tush push with a guy, not taking shots, but like with Kyler Murray or Bryce Young, Jalen Hurts' size and physicality certainly helps him in that regard. So AJ, we got a 3-way tie, folks, because I'm going to give AJ a good take as well. Solid take by Alex Johnson. So we are tied 100 all moving into the second round. Before we move to the second round, let's look at the comments. Oh my goodness. See, we got our guy Barry Grant Jr., who's currently now the points leader in the 8 o'clock spot. He says Dak is not a top 10 quarterback. Let's fight, John. So he's ready to go back and forth with John Rivera. Your response?
I got it. Nah, he's a Dallas fan, so he used to be a Jets fan. Just for everybody that didn't know, you know what I mean. But not to reply to y'all guys, Dak thing, right? What it was like the same offense. Then Dak take over for Romo. When Dak got hurt, then the other guy come in and do his thing too.
I mean, compare their numbers; they're night and day.
Right? No, I'm just saying. Saying though, if you take Lamar Jackson off the Ravens, they ain't really gonna do too much. If you take Jalen Hurts from the Eagles, like that whole dynamic and offense have to change completely. You see that offense in Indianapolis with the offensive coordinator. So.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. That's, you make
just saying.
No question. I'm glad you called out Barry's hypocrisy, because Barry wasn't. But then again, I was also a former Cowboys fan, so I do have some sympathy for Barry Grant Jr.
You're young though. He changed teams in his 30s.
That's true. That's true. He switched up like that. Deep into his journey as an NFL fan. Right. So that's fair. Shout out to you, John, for sticking through thick and thin, and most of it's been pretty darn thin or thick, or however you want to look at it, with the New York Jets. Let's move on to our next topic, but let's look at our second round rules real quick. A great take gives you 400 points. A good take gives you 200. An okay take gives you 100 points, and a bad take gives you 0. So again, everything gets doubled from the previous round. It will do so in the third round. Let's look at the AFC right now, which is just loaded. So the fourth place team in the conference, there's a 3-way tie, 8-3 across the board between the Miami Dolphins, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. We look at all those 4 teams picking up some big wins this week. In the Baltimore Ravens currently in first place in the AFC, first place in that AFC North. It's a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness going on in that division, a lot of parity. I'm sorry, in the AFC in terms of who's going to fight for that number 1 seed. So I'll start with you, Dylan. Today, between Miami, Kansas City, Jacksonville, Baltimore, who do you feel right now is the best team in that conference? And at this point, really, who should be the favorite to get to the Super Bowl?
If you were listening to my last take, it shouldn't be a surprise I'm going with the Dolphins. Patriot fan, by the way, so I'm trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can. Out of those teams, I do firmly believe that the Dolphins are the best all-around team. You know, you look at the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes is the main guy on that offense without a doubt. Travis Kelce hasn't been producing like he should be, and the defense has been carrying the Chiefs a lot in that sense. And I feel the Ravens more or less is kind of parallel in that aspect too, where you have a star quarterback. Receiving core is kind of decent. Of course, Mark Andrews going down definitely hurts them, and they have a great defense. But, you know, we've seen time and time again the Ravens choking, and now the Chiefs are kind of playing close games because they're not blowing out teams like they used to, and the Dolphins are still trudging along, and they're head and shoulders above everybody else in that division. So give me the Dolphins.
That's a fair take, and consider what they've done to, and there's a little bit of Cowboy syndrome, so I do sort of have a little bit of sympathy for the Dolphins in that regard, where they play the big boys, they've struggled against the big boys, but to their credit, and one thing I've noticed in the past few weeks, especially regarding their defense, is how well they've been playing. Like Vic Fangio, who's been a successful defensive guy in his career, like it takes some time. You get Jalen Ramsey back, you get some of those corners back, and that defense looks night and day from what it looked like to start the season, especially when they got blown out infamously against the Buffalo Bills. So I don't totally agree with you, Dylan, but I thought you made a good case. So I'm going to give you a great take for the segment. Great take with regarding the Miami Dolphins right now being the best team in the AFC. I'll move to you now, AJ. Who do you think is the best team in the AFC right now? Is it Jacksonville, Kansas City, Baltimore, or Miami?
Well, I think the Dolphins, just to agree, they're a very exciting team to watch. I enjoy the Dolphins, but where I think they lack is that defense. And when you get into the playoffs, they're going to have to just outscore. They're going to have to put a lot of points on the board if that defense kind of lingers. Jags, do we even need to bring that up? I mean, I don't think anyone's picking those guys. They're just, to me, well, first of all, they're just not fun to watch. So I don't got much to say about them. But it came down to me between the Ravens and the Chiefs. And you're right, they are pretty similar with their defenses. That's what's going to really help you move in the playoffs and keep your team like in the game. The thing between the two, though, if I look back to last week, that was my decision maker. Even though the Ravens won, it was against the Chargers, and it was an ugly win. And I look at the Chiefs, and you're right. I still think they're a dynamic duo, Mahomes and Kelsey, but they have no one else. They've got a bunch of what was, until last game, a bunch of fourth wide receivers. But I think Rashee Rice has kind of changed that with his last game. I think he's coming in, and if he can continue what he's doing to the end of the season, that's going to really improve their offense. And that will be a scary team to play for anyone who has to face them in the playoffs. So I really wanted to say Ravens. I really, really did. But I think it's the Chiefs, man.
They're in a great spot, and I do tend to agree with you that, when you consider the wide receivers, like, people freak out about, last year they had Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, albeit he's playing with Mac Jones, poor guy, I feel bad for him. But he's got 150 yards receiving. Not a shot at you, Dylan, or your team or anything, but I'm just trying to keep it real on this show. But 150 yards receiving, somewhere around that ballpark, and you eliminate him. That there's no way that he made that big of an impact for the Chiefs receiving core. And you mentioned the rookie Rashee Rice, AJ, who's playing really good football right now and played well, over 100 yards receiving against the Raiders. So AJ, I will also give you a great take for this segment, because I do agree. Like, if the problem for the Chiefs, I've been saying this all season long, if the problem for the Kansas City Chiefs is offense, my guess is they're probably going to correct that by season's end, and their defense has been spectacular all season long. So great take there by AJ. Finally, with you, John, who do you think's the best team in the AFC? Is it Miami, Kansas City, Jacksonville, or Baltimore?
Definitely not Jacksonville. Miami is probably the scariest team in the AFC, probably in the league overall, because like you said, where they could put up points, and their defense is, top 10 defense or whatever. But, you got the defending champs, man. Like you said, they might not be winning pretty, but they win them games. And just like he said, Rice is coming along, man. They drafted him high. You know what I mean? The last couple of weeks, he's been, going up as far as receiving and targets and all that. So he's doing his thing over there, and they still gelling. But you also got the Baltimore Ravens, man. Like, the team just find a way to win the game. Like, I understand they got, Odell, Flowers. They got Flowers over there. They, they got like a three-headed monster running game. Well, Andrews is definitely going to be a big, big loss. But I think if you were to say today, you know what I mean, I would say Baltimore overall. Like I said, their wins are a little more solid. And they still, like I said previous weeks, they still haven't hit their stride as well. Like, once they hit their full stride and show their whole dimension of Lamar Jackson doing his thing and running and passing, and Zay and Odell, and they showed a glimpse of that against the Chargers. Chargers record doesn't speak for the team. Like, Chargers are a pretty good team. It's just they can't win them close games for some reason. But yeah, so if you want to say, I would say Baltimore, but the Chiefs are right there because they lost to Philly and they lost to Denver in their own division. But look at Denver now. They 4 or 5 game losing streak. So, them losses are looking, a little better, at the moment, So it's a close tie. But if we talking about right now, best team in the AFC, I say Baltimore. But if you say who I trust more, it's a team like I got right here, Kansas City.
That's fair. I mean, listen, the trust is warranted. They have obviously won 2 of the last 4 championships, been to 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. But, listen, when you consider what Baltimore's doing, Lamar Jackson is playing solid football. Todd Monken, the new OC, has really kind of allowed Lamar to flourish much more as a passer than Greg Roman, the previous OC, used to do. And Odell looks more and more comfortable by the week. Like, that's the thing. If you're a Ravens fan, you got to feel really good about it. Odell looks as healthy as he's looked really since his days with the LA Rams. Zay Flowers showed you that explosiveness there in the fourth quarter against the Chargers. So, again, we are exiting the second round. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a 3-way tie. John, great take. Different takes across the board. Nobody agrees with the same guy, but we're tied at 500 across the board moving into our third round. So it's getting tight before we get into our obviously final round with the top 2 point getters. We may have to have a tiebreaker of some sort. We shall see. Let's move on to our third round rules. Look at this real quick. So you've got, if we can put this up here, a great take gives you 800 points. A good take gives you 400. An okay take gives you 200. And a bad take, you come home empty-handed. You get 0 points. Let's move on to what is undeniably the game of the weekend coming up in week 13, featuring the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 teams that squared off in the NFC title game a year ago at Lincoln Financial Field in the city of brotherly love. Shockingly, at least in my estimation, this is why I'm about to pose the question I'm going to pose. Shockingly, in my estimation, the Philadelphia Eagles' best record in the NFL, MVP, potential frontrunner Jalen Hurts. Ladies and gentlemen, they are 3-point underdogs at home facing a San Francisco 49ers team. We know the firepower they possess. These are arguably two of the best teams in the NFC, although obviously your team, AJ, the Cowboys, makes a strong case that they're in that class as well. So I'll ask you, right now, if you look at this game, should Philadelphia be a home underdog against the 49ers?
You know, I hate when you ask me these questions that I have to go against the grain of what I really want to say. No, I don't think they should be. And the reason is the last 3 weeks, they've come off beating the Cowboys, Chiefs, and Bills. I think it was 5 points, 4 points, and 3-point difference. So that's not necessarily a great argument until you just add in that they were able to pull off victories. And I think that's what really it comes down to. There was no quit. I mean, last week I thought we were cheering. Finally, someone's taking down these Eagles, and they come back and win against the Bills. Mind you, it was an epic kick. Yeah, an epic kick that kind of extended the game. That being said, the other thing too that isn't considered is the refereeing. And I don't know, maybe I watched the Eagles a little too closely than anyone else. So, could be happening for the 49ers too, I'll admit. But there was some noise online. And if you look at some of these missed penalties, starting with the Cowboys too, starting that week and moving up these last 3 weeks, there's been you could count on one hand or almost two hands how many missed calls there are. Now, I know those happen every play, but like I said, it's something that I'm just watching a little bit more closely. So I think the refs might give them a little something that will help them win. I would probably bet for Philly to win the game if I was ever to bet on Philly. But I don't think that they should be underdogs at home. No.
That's fair. I mean, listen, it's obviously San Francisco. There's the argument that some of the Niners players had last year, like, hey, if Brock Purdy's arm doesn't basically come apart in the first quarter of that game, maybe it's more competitive. Certainly, we assume it's more competitive because they lost Josh Johnson right after that, and they were having to run Christian McCaffrey at Wildcat the rest of the game, so it wasn't really wasn't a competitive game in the second half at that point. So solid take. I'm going to give you an okay take, Alex. I don't know if the officiating is quite as one side as you're giving it credit for. I mean, I could argue there were some plays in the fourth quarter where Buffalo got the upper hand. There were some ticky-tack false starts on Jason Kelce that kind of hurt the field position. And then props to Jake Elliott. He made the kick of kicks. They're descended to overtime. But okay take there for AJ. Move to John Rivera right now. Do you think the Eagles should be home underdogs to the 49ers?
Hell no, that's just disrespectful. They just disrespecting the Eagles. You talking about refs and betting? Don't that all go together? You know what I mean? The refs call the game, they got point savings or whatever. But yeah, that's just disrespectful, man. They just giving at home. That's just crazy. +3, yeah. I'm a betting man. You know what I mean? As your segment, I'm a betting man, so I'm definitely taking the Eagles +3. But it's definitely disrespectful. You know what I mean? San Francisco. Ultimately, I give them all due respect. They ultimately, top to bottom, one of the best teams, if not the best team, like roster-wise, top to bottom. But the only really, really, really good win was a Dallas spanking. I know, sorry for your Dallas Cowboys. I know you bring them up because, Dallas fanboy over there. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to y'all. But yeah. So the only big win was, I believe, was against Dallas. They took a 3-game losing streak. Philly lost to my Jets. It was fluky. Jets at that time was okay. You know what I mean? So it was a fluky game, you know what I mean? But Philly, one loss all season. Like I said, San Fran went through that 3-game losing streak. The only really big win was against Dallas. Philly showing these tough, grimy games where they can, come back in the rain at home against Buffalo. The same thing, beat down at halftime against Kansas City. Like, they beat all these games. The same for Dallas. Dallas should have won that game. But, a win is a win, a loss is a loss, as I say. So it's definitely disrespectful that they're getting +3 at home. I'm definitely going to take them. And guess what? It's going to be another gritty, ugly kind of guy game, and Philly's going to win at the end. Close game, you know what I mean? At home for being disrespected.
You know what? What's crazy is I almost feel like I was saying on my show yesterday and carving it up that there's this weird sort of narrative of Philly. Just full transparency. I hate the Eagles. I passionately hate the Eagles. Hate all Philadelphia teams, Sixers, everybody. But there's this weird narrative about like how their wins maybe don't look that good aesthetically. They're not like sexy wins like the Niners have had in the past, like against Jacksonville or against Dallas, for example. And it's kind of like, yeah, but when you find a way to win, you're battle tested. You know what it's like to win many different type of ways. You can win shootouts. You can win, like last week, ugly games against the Buffalo Bills. Like it can, props to them for taking care of business when they did. So for that, John, great take, my man. John is pretty much the way the point spread's going right now. It looks like John is almost guaranteed to advance to the final round. We will see if it comes down to AJ versus Dylan. So I will ask you, Dylan, should the Philadelphia Eagles be underdogs at home against the 49ers?
I feel like this is a lot tougher question for me than it really should be. I feel like it should be a no-brainer that the Eagles should not be underdogs because they have the best record in the NFL, and as iterated, they always find different ways to win. And Nick Sirianni is a great coach. My concern with them is that they kind of play a little too cute, like they kind of like doing trickery. They almost have to rely on different, like, they have to really open up the playbook sometimes to really get the ball going instead of just playing standard basic football. And I feel like that's where the Niners kind of do best, where you're not looking at them as like, oh, what are they going to do next? Like, you know what they're going to do, and they're still going to beat you. I do believe, though, that if the Niners get ahead, they're going to keep their foot on the Eagles' throats. I have been high on the Niners, and I think I'm going to stay high on the Niners. It's just tough because I think Niners should be favorites, but it would only be like by 1 point, maybe even if it's just like a even spread. But I still give the edge to the Niners overall.
That's fair. And I do think San Francisco today, with respect to Philly, Baltimore, teams like that, I do think Philadelphia is the best. San Francisco is the best roster on the NFL top to bottom. I've been saying all season, like if Brock Purdy's your weak link, that's a darn good weak link to have on your football team, given his numbers and what he's produced dating back to last season. So fair points across the board. What's funny is when you look at our point totals right now. So John, congrats, man. You're moving to the final round for the second straight week. But we look at our point totals. Okay take by Dylan, with the okay take by AJ. Right now, I'm looking at this good old-fashioned American quarter right here. I think we're going to flip this puppy 2 out of 3 times. You know what? Let's just do it with single elimination. 1 time to decide who advances. So since Dylan advanced, we're going to do this, okay? Since Dylan advanced to the final round a week ago, he gets to call heads or tails. So, Dylan, you going to call heads on this puppy or tails?
Tails never fails. Give me tails.
I totally disagree with tails never fails, but we will see if that comes to fruition. Here we go. All right. Flipped it. Tails never fails. Dylan advances to the final round. Congratulations. Sorry to do this to you, AJ, but great performance, though, my man. Great performance. A multi-time participant in the 8 o'clock spot. The championship will come in the future, my man. You will, at some point, get some bracket brights over Adam and certainly over Anth. We need to get Anth on the show at some point, AJ.
But yeah, absolutely. We got to set up a CanFan spectacular here.
Yes.
I don't know if it'll be recordable. We'll be arguing too much. But I do have a question for you, and I want you to hit this up on the Carving It Up podcast, if you can, if this fits you. I want to know what the risk is of Dan Quinn leaving the Cowboys in 2024, and if there is a risk, what keeps him around. And I'll say my piece. Good luck, gentlemen.
There it is. Yeah, listen, I will get you. That's not gonna help you advance automatically next time you're on the show. But I will definitely cover that certainly in the future at some point on Carving Up Live. But shout out to AJ of the CanFan podcast. Great performance today, my man. So it comes down once again. It's a rematch of last week, the Thanksgiving matchup between Mr. John Rivera and Mr. Dylan Lima. But before we get into our final topic, let's look at our final round rules. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a winner go home situation. Okay, the winner gets 10,000 points. It's the great equalizer of this great 8 o'clock spot tournament, 16 episodes in. The margins are very, very thin. The loser comes home with nothing. 0 points. You come up in second place in this contest. Let's move to last night's, I guess we could call that a football game, what happened last night in Minneapolis between the Vikings, the Bears, Chicago. Despite not scoring an offensive touchdown this game, and despite 2 fourth-quarter turnovers from the guy you see right there on your screen, Justin Fields, they won this game 12-10 over the Vikings. My man, Space Dobbs, Josh Dobbs, 4 interceptions on the day. Not great for him and not great for me as a Dobbs fan. But this isn't about Dobbs. This is about Justin Fields and what he's been able to produce this season for the Chicago Bears. They're sitting there at 4-8, but they hold Carolina's pick due to the Bryce Young trade. And right now the Panthers have the worst record in football, so the Bears could get the number 1 pick again. And there's this guy to USC, Caleb Williams, who might be available, other great quarterback prospects. So I'll start with our defending champion, John Rivera. If the Bears get the number 1 pick, or even if they don't, do you think they should take a quarterback in this upcoming draft or roll with Justin Fields for year 4?
I say personally, I will roll with Fields for another year. I mean, I don't see that. Williams is nice. I give it to him. But is he like that pure number 1? This is solid number 1 pick. Maybe last year, if it had came out before, Young, if he was able to come out. But, you got to see more tape on him. You got to see a little less more talent because you got to think USC get the top tier talent. You know what I mean? So he get to play with the top receivers and everything. And his numbers was good. And this year, kind of faded away a little bit. So me personally, if I'm Chicago, man, if I got the first pick, you got to think what they got last year for the first pick overall. Basically, this year's number 1 pick. So if you can flip and bounce it again, get you the top offensive lineman, maybe get you the top receiver, Myra Harrison Jr., depends how the dominoes fall. Quickly, the Chicago Bears can be almost like the Detroit Lions. They got the cap room to pick up any players they want to, basically. They freed up all that cap. They traded all their guys a couple years ago for this moment, actually. You know what I mean? So they'll actually have 2 top 4 picks, cap space, and they got talent over there. They got more, like you said, and they add some more pieces over there. I think this team will be solid, man, because, they beat a decent Minnesota team over there, and they beat in games. You know what I mean? And Justin Fields and Williams might be a little better, but it's not a big leap for me enough to, get Williams and get off of Fields. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you're not going to be picking this high, hopefully, in a long time, and you can change it with a lineman and a receiver. You know what I mean? Quickly. And like I said, they got the number 1 salary cap, so they can build around it, man. Add another offensive lineman with Fields and go from there. And then if it doesn't work, guess what? The following year, they can pick up a free agent quarterback. You know what I mean? Sign him for big money or whatever. But the gap isn't far enough for me.
10 seconds, John.
Yeah, the gap isn't just far enough for me for that. Like I said, and all the other stuff I added on to that.
For sure. Yeah, and that the case for that would be the fact that Justin Fields, like he is no question the most difficult quarterback to kind of evaluate from that 2021 class. Like we know Trevor Lawrence is good, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones have been busts, and Trey Lance, who the heck knows? I mean, he's barely played. When you talk about a guy like Justin Fields, he's almost 20 games below 500 for his career record. But then again, Jimmy Garoppolo's career record is excellent. But compare the two guys' talent, Justin Fields certainly provides more upside in many ways. So you see the flashes there, and then you see some really ugly plays like last night. He's really difficult. Is it him? Is it the system there in Chicago? Is it a mix of the two? I guess the only time we'll see if the Bears roll with Mr. Fields. And then to you, Dylan, do you think the Bears should roll with Fields or draft a quarterback in 2024?
I'm actually going to side with John here. I do think they should stay away from quarterback in this upcoming draft. Sure, Fields, he hasn't played to his full potential, but I do like his talent, and I really don't think the Bears are a good team overall, quite honestly. And I think the Fields is one of the few lone bright spots on that whole team. Like that defense is atrocious, and you could definitely say that defense was a big cause of quite a few of their losses. And obviously you can't rewrite the past, but I think the Bears have way more problems than just drafting another quarterback. If Justin Fields was on his contract year and you either had to re-sign him or go with a number 1 quarterback, that'd be a different story. But since Fields is still on his rookie contract, why not just keep on playing him as long as he's cheap and kind of just kick the can down the road for at least 1 more year and see how it goes?
Yeah, it's interesting. And too, you talk about, the offensive line problems, and that's sort of the thing that I struggle with. I think a lot of people struggle with Fields is, the flashes are there, but then there's some deficiencies there. But is that some of Chicago? They did try to address the offensive line. They did draft Darnell Wright. They did get him a receiver in DJ Moore, who we saw in weeks ago in that Washington game had a massive performance, and we saw last night made a huge catch on that pass from Fields. Cole Kmet had a solid night as well. So the weapons are there, but maybe not quite to the level that one might want. But listen, I actually disagree with both of you because I think Caleb Williams is a spectacular talent. But you guys have the exact same pick, so there's got to be a winner. So to dial up the victory music, here we go. The champion, the 8 o'clock spot this week. Episode 16 is John Rivera, back-to-back weeks. Congratulations, John, defeating Dylan once again. Before I get to Dylan, your reaction, John, on second straight championship on the 8 o'clock spot. Hasn't been done by many people thus far.
Oh man, I'm waiting for the three-peat, man. Michael Jordan's back-to-back, three-peats. I need that, but it feels good, man. Definitely feels good.
Didn't mean to play that again. My bad. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. Hey, back-to-back. Hey, you got to play it back-to-back. Next time I win, I need you to pipe that Drake back-to-back. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Get that popping.
Back to back. Yes, sir. Congratulations, John Dylan. You fall for second straight week into the same opponent. How you feeling?
It hurts even more the second time. I'm a little disappointed. I don't agree that Caleb Williams is really the head and shoulders top quarterback. I still think Bo Nix definitely has a shout. And while Caleb Williams is a mobile quarterback, you already have that in Justin Fields. So I don't get why you need another mobile quarterback when there's so many more problems. But that's just me.
That's fair.
I want y'all to win a couple more games because I don't want Bo Nix to be in my division, man. Bo Nix he's the truth. He's the truth.
He's solid. I like him. Let's get an impartial voice though. AJ, your thoughts on my decision?
It was close, man. It's hard when people say the same answer just in the pick, I should say. But I think, hey, you should have done a coin flip.
Listen, the coin flip is for equal points. Listen, it's tough. Like, this was one of those 8 o'clock spot episodes. Like, we've had wire-to-wire wins. Guido's done it in the past. Barry Grant Jr.'s done it in the past. But this is one of those good old-fashioned, the score's low, too. So it's like an old-school defensive football battle. It's fitting. We got championship weekend in college football. NFL season is moving into December. So very, very fitting that the 8 o'clock spot score looks a little bit like it looks tonight. But, John, congratulations. Shout out to you as well, Dylan and AJ. That is it for this week's edition of the 8 o'clock spot. Be sure to check us out next Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel and on the Gryd Network's Twitter. Be sure to follow and subscribe all of our Gryd Network contributors and content creators. Also, be sure to go follow John Rivera at the Pham Perspective podcast. Just celebrated your 4-year anniversary. Congratulations, John. Go follow. Go check out Dylan, his social media and where he's at. And shout out to the CanFan guys as well. A lot of great content over there on the Cowboys CanFan. So, congratulations, everybody. Congratulations to you, John. We will see everybody next week. God bless you all. Peace out.